Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, you're not going to believe what we get to talk about today.
Surprise me.
Tony, I think we're going to be talking about Michigan and their sign stealing, spying scandal thing for what feels like about the fifth day in a row. But every day I think, okay, well, we'll get to do like a Wisconsin preview show today. And then something else comes out, and there was big news since last we spoke, Tony. There's been big news from our own Mark Givler of BuckeyeHuddle.com, from Tom Withers from the AP, from Pete Thamel from ESPN, from Ross Dellinger from Yahoo, from various college football message boards from the last 10 months or so predicting the future. There's Las Vegas maybe getting involved. Michigan author John U. Bacon is throwing out names of people on the NCAA's committees on infractions that might be out to get Jim Harbaugh. Tony, there's some stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, and initially I was wondering, is there just a name that we can give to this thing rather than the whole Michigan sign stealing thing? Is there a gate that we can put on this? I know people are calling it sign gate. That seems pretty meh. Do you do something with the name Stalions? Do you do like Gallup Gate? Or do you just stick it with Michigan? Just call it Michigan Gate. Make them own this. I'm thinking, Tom, you know how when you've got this system where you send people out into the world to go get you stuff, and some realms they call those people Smurfs. So my suggestion, Smurfgate.
Michigate isn't bad. I really have loved Wild Stallions with a Y in wild, like the band in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But yeah, I don't think we've hit a winner yet for sure there. So we'll keep workshopping that. Good news, I think we'll have more future shows in which to workshop that. So I don't think we necessarily need to land in a final answer right here.
No, so let's discuss. We've got plenty of things to talk about. Mark Givler's report from Tuesday that Clemson was one of the games that Connor Stalions had been purchased a ticket for and was going to go or send somebody out to scout Clemson, who I believe at the time was like 8-0. So clearly they were looking like a college football playoff bowl or possibility. And so that just gives you an idea of the level of advanced scouting, because it goes well beyond the Big Ten. And then Pete Thamel comes out and corroborates that and says that there were the last two SEC championship games and other games outside the scope of the Big Ten as well. I even saw some dope on the internet saying that Mark and Buckeye Huddle were just trying to get in on Thamel's reporting when Mark's story came out before Thamel's about Clemson. But once it's bad enough, it's bad in the Big Ten. Then when you start to involve other conferences, just Michigan's going to have to be careful here, because now you're bringing in other entities other than just the NCAA and the Big Ten.
Yeah, you're inviting a broader group of people to be directly impacted by this. And, if I think that you would be hearing many, many more issues coming from the Athens, Georgia realm of the world if Michigan had beaten Georgia a couple of years ago in the playoffs, as it was. Whatever they did whatever happened at the SEC championship game that year did not have any meaningful impact on the on-field result that transpired in the semifinal there against the Georgia Bulldogs. But, what's interesting, Tony, is the name that you didn't say. I mean, they were, he's obviously, there's been linked to tickets at many potential college football playoff potential opponents. I didn't see TCU mentioned in there anywhere. Did you? That seems strange to me. How did that game go?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, it did not go well for Michigan. It seemed like a couple of pick sixes in that one, having trouble deciphering the secondaries, having trouble deciphering the TCU offense. I don't want to say a matchup game, as Ryan Day says, but it sure seemed like things were a little bit more even there, just based on the score. The score was so even throughout that game, you'd have to assume everything else was even as well.
Yeah, I mean, and again, this is not a definitive proof that, that it means 3 touchdown advantage per game or whatever. It's just, boy, that's interesting that worked out in that way. And you look at the, you know, let's say inconsistency of results of Michigan throughout regular seasons in terms of what they did to Penn State last year, what they did against Ohio State last year, and then how they looked against TCU, and it just wasn't the same team. And at the time, I sort of chalked it up to, maybe Harbaugh is just not, he's staying a little too true to what he likes to do. And if you have enough time to prep against Jim Harbaugh offense, you maybe are at a little bit of an advantage. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I mean, I don't think there's anything there to make any kind of definitive statement, but it sure is an interesting confluence of events.
I do also think it was interesting in Mark's piece where he talked about, also wrote about your photos and the sign, the picture of the laminated signals where Ohio State told Mark, people from sources at Ohio State believe that those are their plays. So again, as we've talked about in previous shows, they weren't just drawing those plays up drawing up those diagrams as they were learning the plays in real time at the game. This comes from somewhere, and where it doesn't come from is the all 22 and the TV tape that so many people Michigan fans have talked about, where, well, you can get all of that from the all 22 and you can't. I had an NFL person, a guy, reach out to me and say, like, the all 22 never shows what the coaches are doing pre-snap, because it's taking the full field into, that's where the camera is. You'll only start seeing the signals and stuff like that as things maybe broaden out or the camera goes up. Like, this isn't something that is part of all 22s. You're not going to get all of the information you want there. You're not going to get all of the information you want from the TV. The only way to get all of the information you want is to be there in person. And the greatest Twitter response of all time, Tom, when Kevin Noon yesterday tweets out a screenshot of all 22s, that this is what an all 22 film looks like. So keep telling me how science can be stolen from all 22. And the response, a heartfelt response, and I'm not even going to mention the person's name. The response was, because there are 22 angles, not just this one. And
Tony, you learn something new every day, don't you?
I learned that I still have the ability to laugh my butt off, because that was the single funniest thing I've seen in a very long time. And I hope each day, how Jim Valvano says, laugh, cry every day, get your emotions out. If I can find something that makes me laugh like that every single day, I'll be a much happier person. And maybe it's all it takes is just following this dude on Twitter.
Okay, so if just in case you were not in on the joke, the reason it's called all 22 is because you can see all 22 players who are on the field, because there's 11 on the offense and 11 on the defense. That's why it's called all 22. There are not 22 angles. You usually get 2 angles. One is the sideline angle, looking the sort of traditional TV angle, but much wider, so you can see everyone on the field at the same time. The other one comes from behind the end zone, so you get sort of the vertical angle of the team coming directly at you or away from you. So that's what the all 22 is. And yes, I think we have both watched a decent amount of all 22, and no, you are not going to just be able to pull a team's full set of signals off of there. You frequently, almost always, I'm going to say almost always because I don't want to say always, but almost always, that starts as the guys are on the field and set and, in formation, and you're not, you don't have this like long break. It's chopped from play to play. So you don't have this like long break in the middle where everyone's signaling. You can see everyone's signals. Like, no, you cannot get them from that. And you don't have to trust me, Tony. You know who you can trust on that? Connor Stalions, because if you could get all of this from the all 22, if you could get all of this from the TV tape, Tony, this sentence probably would not exist. ESPN has confirmed that Stalions has purchased tickets to more than 35 games at 17 stadiums around the country. He has used a network of at least 3 people who were forwarded tickets to attend games. Tony, if you could get it all from TV and all 22 legally, why would you have to have this elaborate system where you're sending people to all games in 35 games at 17 stadiums around the country? That seems pretty self-evident to me.
Yeah, it explains itself. And when you're doing something like this, you're doing it for an advantage, and it's not what what I've seen from Michigan fans saying you can't buy your friends tickets to games. I mean, is this wrong? When did this become? Is this still America? And the the buying of the ticket, and then on maybe it was a Tennessee game, or I don't even remember anymore because all of these games, but he buys a ticket and then like 3 minutes later it's transferred, and I know some people are upset with the going to see, they're buying tickets for 12 of the 13 Big Ten venues, and people are like, wondering which Big Ten team that he didn't go and scout. I think what has happened there, they're not scouting all 13 Big Ten teams or 12 of the 13. They're scouting Ohio State 4 times, Penn State 3 times, stuff like that. So I wouldn't expect them to be necessarily scouting Indiana, maybe.
Well, there was also, and there has been a good amount of internet ink spilled over this week, so I cannot tell you exactly where I saw this, but there was reporting, I think it might have been either Ross Dellinger or Pete Thamel, but I could not tell you for sure, that the 13th of those other stadiums does not have access to the third party. So if you bought it through StubHub, whatever school that is does not have access to the StubHub data or whatever, for whatever reason, the way their ticketing system is set up. So it's not that they weren't purchased for that stadium. It's just that that school doesn't have access to that data. And again, I will apologize. That was not just like random dude on Twitter. That was in one of the articles I've read from one of the credible national sources on that. I just can't remember which one it was, but yes, that's the explanation there.
Speaking of random dudes on Twitter, Tom, the message board posts from a Tennessee board in December and then in January that have come out, which normally you would just ignore, but when you, I think Andy Staples tweeted these out, but I've seen them elsewhere. But so this one from December 1st at VolQuest, the post says, "Oh, do I have a story on that? One of my little brother's friends is a scout for them," meaning Michigan. They paid for him to travel to the Tennessee Vandy game and to basically to steal the signs. He's from Nashville originally, so he went anyway, even after the loss. But says that he and others are never allowed to talk to Harbaugh directly about it. But this is back in December 1st, and then again in January 17th of 2023, he talks about it again, and that there's conversation about this, and the only people they're apparently keeping it a secret from is maybe Jim Harbaugh, because the people that Stalions allegedly is sending to or buying tickets for, they're telling other people about it. And then there may be 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. There are only 2 degrees of a message board. You can talk to one person and that person is connected to a message board and they're going to let everybody know. So it's just fascinating to see this, where I obviously don't remember seeing these back in December and January. Not that we would. It would never get anywhere because it's like, okay, yeah, whatever. And I don't know even how many people would know that that's against the rules until you find out that the NCAA is getting involved. And then you're like, oh yeah, I remember this. And then this pops back up on the message board and pops back up on Twitter. But the other key part about this January 17th one, and again, it's a message board post. Some of it has proven to be apparently accurate, but we can't say all of it is. But one of the sentences here is, they, meaning Michigan, would pay his flights, lodging, food, and seats right behind that team's bench for him to get video, notes, etc. If that is all found out, then it's going to burn to the ground. And but you would assume there would be like a lack of paper trail, but the paper trails so far have been very the reams have stacked up like basically walls of paper that you can follow down this yellow brick maze brick road.
Well, you have, I mean, he's got a bunch of transactions on Venmo that were public transactions until recently, so the transaction history is going to exist there. That's something you could get from Venmo if you, as a school, were cooperating fully with the NCAA investigation, as teams have claimed that they were going to do. Yeah, this is, I think, maybe the single most instructive thing here, because this was sort of thrown out there 9 months ago. There's no internet clout to be gained by doing it. It's just like, some guy on some board makes a post about this interesting thing that his friend told him. And then months and months and months later, everyone kind of goes, oh, it's like, this is not a perfect analogy in terms of the people involved in both ends of this. But do you remember when Osama bin Laden got killed and there was that one guy who was like live tweeting it from Abbottabad as it was happening? And then it was later like,
Yes.
okay. That kind of person who's doing it live without any real expectation of like, I bet this is Osama bin Laden getting clipped. That's a relatively reliable narrator in all of this, because you look back now and it's like, this guy has successfully predicted the future. So, this is not all, 100% gospel, but boy, this is not real spin. Like, this is, Tennessee didn't lose a game to Michigan. Tennessee didn't even play Michigan. There's nothing to spin here. This is just an interesting story about a mutual friend. And, if Michigan is paying flights, lodging, food, and seats behind the team's bench for him to get video notes, etc., as the quote says directly, that's, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be that's going to be something that's very hard to, sort of shove off as irrelevant. The fact that they are never allowed to talk to Harbaugh directly about it is, are you protecting the head guy, or is this giving the head guy plausible deniability? Frankly, I think the answer is it probably doesn't matter because of the rules with the head coaches, being responsible for everything that happens under them, whether it's someone who reports to them directly or indirectly. That, this is someone who would fall under Harbaugh's umbrella. Stalions would. This, that kind of stuff, again, let's see what they're able to prove in terms of the paper trail here, but this does not seem like a particularly craftily run operation. I mean, the SEC Shorts Twitter account had a video on it, and it was just basically, you can just go ahead and find it. I will not do it justice.
Yes.
It's, how not incredibly clever this whole thing was and how extremely obvious they made some of this stuff. There was a picture of a guy videotaping at an Oregon game, videotaping the whole game on one of the boards, again, months and months and months ago. You can go back and find this stuff, and it's just like, this is just, you're starting to see more and more and more corroboration. And between that and the daily drip from Pete Thamel, from Ross Dellinger, from, I think Pat Forty's been writing about it a bunch. There's a bunch of these national guys who keep getting new information, and it keeps getting bigger. And generally when you get the drip, that always kind of, that the drip doesn't generally stop on its own. That's true with a faucet. That's true with a news story here. That is probably not just going to go away. And the more information comes out, the more it's helpful for the NCAA and or the Big Ten making a case here.
Even as we're recording this, by the time we get it posted, there may be something that is, not necessarily out of date, but there's new information. And that's just the danger of living in the live news era that we live in, Tom, where anything can happen on any given day. And you wait, it's like, well, it's 9:30 in the morning. I wonder when I'm sure there'll be something by 10. And then it's like, well, it's 2:30 in the afternoon. I bet we'll hear something by 4. And it's almost like clockwork right now with what is going on. I want to mention the Tom Withers from the Associated Press, who covers the Browns, talking to DeJuan Jones, former Buckeye right tackle, about the Michigan sign stealing thing. And DeJuan said that they suspected that the Wolverines had their sideline signals and they made some changes. But Tom, as DeJuan says, you can't change everything. And this has been one of the I don't know, the handholds, the life vests that Michigan fans have been using about the effectiveness of sign stealing. Well, Ohio State, they changed things in 2022 and they still lost. And changing some things and changing everything are two vastly different things. And if you've got information, like you've got all of the signals, you've got so much information, you've got a lot of time invested, you can't expect, you can't change things for an entire team, and you can't change everything in an entire team in such short notice and still be able to produce and perform on time, on schedule, and tip top shape like you need to do against a quality opponent. So I think it was just one more strike down of the excuses about how ineffective or inconsequential this stuff is.
Yeah, there is only a limited amount of time during the week. These guys are not NFL players where this is the only thing going on in their lives. There are restrictions in terms of practice hours. There's restrictions in terms of all sorts of stuff. And there you can only do so much in terms of changing stuff up over the course of a week. Because if you're changing stuff up every single week, first of all, it chews up a lot of time. Second of all, these people are not robots. Like you see missed signs in the major leagues. And if you have a team who's, you're signaling in a play and one guy misses the sign, that's where you have the wide receiver go one direction and the quarterback throws the ball the other direction. Or, one guy is blocking one play and everyone else is blocking another play and the play gets blown up. That's the kind of stuff that makes game-changing plays happen. So there's only so much you can realistically do. So, and also it forces, if you have a reputation as Michigan has for doing this potentially in legal or illegal ways, whatever way you want to chalk it up to, this is not the first time it's been, rumored that this has been going on. And Michigan has been, Connor Stalions, a report from SI. Speaking of things breaking in the middle of podcasts, a report from Richard Johnson of SI cites a long text conversation with Connor Stalions about his connections to the Michigan football program. I'm close with the whole staff, he wrote. Particularly, he said he, quote, became close with CP and Jay Harbs, apparently referring to current linebackers coach Chris Partridge, and running backs and assistant special teams coach Jay Harbaugh, who is the son of head coach Jim Harbaugh. Reading on, quote, pre-COVID stole opponent signals during the week watching TV copies, then flew to the game and stood next to then Michigan offensive coordinator Josh Gaddis and told him what coverage pressure he was getting, Stalions continued. These texts are part of a lengthy back and forth in January and February 2021 between Stalions and a then student at a Power 5 school who was looking to break into the college football industry. And then it says the specific act Stalions described deciphering opponent signals off TV footage is not against NCAA rules. In the last week, though, the now suspended Michigan staffer has become a household name across college football following accusations and reports that he orchestrated an elaborate scheme to place unnamed associates of his in stadiums of Michigan's opponents to scout and in some cases film opposing coaches' signals. Both acts very much against the rules. I got to tell you, I have not been able to post anything this week without someone with 13 followers and a Block M avatar saying that's not even against the rules. And in the cases where I put in the initial post, this is not against the rules, they were correct. In many, many other cases, Tony, less so.
Being able to get some of the information from TV copy and then knowing what you're looking for and getting that is one thing. Getting all of the information from being on site. Again, if he was able to do all of this via all 22 and TV copy, why are all the tickets being purchased? But yes, Tom, it's legal to steal signs, and it reminds me of something that I tweeted on Tuesday where, if you steal a car and then you get picked up for speeding and all you're going to say is like, everybody speeds. I was only doing 75 and a 65. Like, everybody does this. Or not even speeding. You're just like, everybody drives. What's the deal? What's the big deal? Everybody drives. Everybody drives to work. Everybody drives to the grocery store. Like, yes, but how did you get the car? How did you get the film? How did you get the diagrams? How did you, where did that come about? And the whole thing of this is just about stealing signs. This is just about a hamburger. It is such wishery and hopery that I would love to know what their thought process, like for the Michigan fan base and some of the Michigan people covering this, what their reactions would be if this is Ohio State stealing signs. It's like it goes back to A Time to Kill, one of the final scenes where Matthew McConaughey says, "And now I want you to picture this is Ohio State." And then Michigan fans are all like, "Oh my God." Guilty.
Yeah.
Or not guilty. However you want to spin that A Time to Kill thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, so I don't remember which way it was supposed to be going. Either way, the hamburgers thing is so interesting. I heard someone use that recently. Well, you got to remember, this is the NCAA that went after Jim Harbaugh against hamburgers. Like, Tony, are you familiar with the concept of an unreliable narrator in literature?
Yeah.
So an unreliable narrator is the guy who's telling you the story in the book, and then it turns out like, oh, this guy's completely full of crap, and a bunch of stuff that I thought was true turns out to not be true at all. If someone is telling you the initial case against Jim Harbaugh was about hamburgers and nothing but hamburgers, they are an unreliable narrator, and you should not listen to them. There was COVID violations is what the NCAA is looking at right now. Like a lot of the stuff, remember all the stuff that Herm Edwards got in trouble with like illegal visits during COVID and that kind of stuff? That's what that's about. It's not just hamburgers. Like hamburgers is like the whimsical shorthand. Is like, this is Jim Harbaugh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he probably had some milk with him. There's actual like stuff there. This is not just some whimsical, some extra stretchy. It was hamburgers. Okay. Like there's actual substance there. So you should probably bear that in mind when you're thinking about who you want to listen to on some of this stuff. But yeah, I don't even remember what you said. Sorry, you said hamburgers and I went into a Manchurian Candidate thing there. What were we even talking about?
Well, it's not just stealing signs. It
Oh,
goes beyond that.
yeah.
It's not just hamburgers.
Mm-hmm.
It's, and I saw one of the things with Adam King from Channel 10, I believe, posting the video of them having the signals of like the first series of the 2022 game, where you see Connor Stalions talking to one of the Michigan coaches, Jesse Minter, I believe, and saying just saying something, and then Jesse Minter saying something, and then all of the players behind him reacting that it's going to be a pass. And then I believe on that play, Ohio State throws a touchdown pass. It's in the red zone. And so people are saying, well, see, the play wasn't even successful. So how beneficial is it to steal signs? And it's like, I don't think that argument is as strong as you think it is, because you even had the signs and you couldn't stop it. So imagine what you would be unable to do if you didn't have any of that information. It's like with Tecmo Bowl, the original Tecmo Bowl. You had 4 plays. You had a 25% chance of stopping that play. Those are pretty darn good odds. If you know whether it's a pass or a run, you've eliminated one of those things. You've eliminated, I don't care about the play action pass anymore. I will just stay back. I'm not going to come up at all. And I can't remember who it was talking about it, but I think it may have been James Franklin talking about if it's 3rd and short or 4th and short and we're on offense and we're doing a play action and the safeties stay in a cover 2 and they just stay back there. If they do that once, like, okay, they guessed right. If they continue to do that in other 3rd and short yardage situations, then they have your signals. That's the kind of advantage that has when you don't have to worry about the run or you don't have to worry about the pass and you can just focus on the other. That gives you an incredible advantage. That doesn't mean you're going to stop it because everybody has some skill in this game. But to eliminate an entire half of your defensive playbook or the offensive playbook is an incredible advantage.
Right. And, it was James Franklin, and that was the exact example he gave. And that's absolutely right. One thing that I think is I have really not seen a lot of people talking about this in this context. Remember, all the Michigan people who are saying it didn't matter that Michigan had Ohio State signals or stole Ohio State signals because Ohio State changed their signals. Right. Ohio State changed their signals. So I'm going to go back and read I think we talked about this earlier, the Dwan Jones thing from Tom Withers from the AP. He said the Buckeyes suspected the Wolverines had their sideline signals last year and made some changes, but couldn't change everything. They made some changes. So it was probably some changes. So therefore you didn't know immediately. You had some idea. Maybe you guessed right. Maybe the signals were similar, but not exactly the same. So you didn't have the exact play. You knew it was a pass, but you didn't have the exact play because it was the first drive of the game and you were just figuring out, hey, maybe they've changed their signals a little bit. And then and then you figure out, okay, you can't change everything. So maybe you're changing the indicator. Maybe you're changing which guy is the dummy on any individual given play, whatever it is. Once you figure that out, then you have a better, you get better again later in the game. And that stuff is legal, but the stuff before the game is not. One thing that I pulled up, and this is not proof positive of anything. It's just, I wanted to pull this up and I decided I'm going to talk about this on the show, whether it proves something or not. Here's another data point. This is the Michigan blog, MGO blog, has for years done UFR, which is upon further review. They go back and look at play by play, charting each play, which player did well, which player did, you get a plus or a minus. One of the things they track is called RPS, which is rock, paper, scissors. So it's basically, I on offense have called a play that, you're going to blitz and I'm going to throw a screen or I'm going to run a draw or whatever. And it's going to, this is going to be the perfect call for the defense that you're in, or vice versa. Hey, you're running a 4th and 1 and, but you're going to pass it. And I'm going to keep both my safeties back. Even though that's not, I have outsmarted you. I have won rock, paper, scissors, right? 2021 offense against Ohio State, Michigan was a +3. Defense against Ohio State, Michigan was a +2. So that was, you had an advantage, but not an enormous advantage. 2022 offense, Michigan was a +7, 7 more plays that they had a schematic advantage on defense, +12. So they have gone from a +2 to a +12 in 1 year. I'm not saying that this is proof positive of anything. Maybe they just got a lot smarter. But that is from MGO blog, the Michigan site. That's their numbers contemporaneously at the time. I wanted to go back and check, Tony, have a little bit more of a control group going back to, obviously they didn't play in 2019, didn't play in 2020. Someone else did it on the offensive side of the ball for them in 2019. So the numbers are not the same. They were a +6, but it was a different person grading. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to grade this the same way that Brian does. So, and then they didn't grade defense in 2019. And then they got murdered in 2018 and they were sad and they didn't do it then. So you go back several years and they haven't done it. So there's not a great control group there, but 2021 to 2022, Michigan got a lot better at being in exactly the right call against Ohio State for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, 2022 is when he was made Connor Stalions was made a full-time staffer. Is that the timeline on that one?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
And so based on the SI thing that just came out, he was also doing some of this in 2021 as well, which I think is something that Pete Thamel's also reported. But he's been around the program since like 2015 in some form or fashion. And I did see so much in this show for me is just more than any other shows recently. Like, I saw on Twitter, and it's a just a terrible way to live. But I did see a Reddit post on Twitter about, is it any coincidence that Jim Harbaugh's worst year at Michigan is the year that no fans were allowed in the stadium of 2020, when you couldn't, like, none of this would have been possible. And I don't know, the COVID year may actually truthfully predate this whole alleged thing, but this is the problem with having something like this, because it invites a ton of speculation, especially when a ton of the speculation is bearing out. It's like, well, this follows and this follows, and he bought tickets for a Clemson game and he bought tickets for this game, never once buying a ticket for a Michigan game in any of these contests, which is another topic we can move on to in a second. But, I just, so many interesting internet sleuths out there, I guess.
Well, and with that one, with the COVID year, I'm kind of willing to just sort of write off the COVID year as the weird one-off that it was. There was a lot of stuff going on there. You had players missing every week. Penn State had an awful year that year as well. I don't look at 2020 and go, aha, QED. I don't think that's proof positive of anything. But, one thing that is, you talked about the, skewing the outcomes. Tony, do you know how many times Michigan has covered the spread out of their last 23 games?
I don't think they did it in a non-conference this year, but Tell me.
According to CBS Sports, they are 17-5-1 against the spread in their last 23 games. 23 conference games. Sorry. Last 23 conference games.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Brent Musburger talking about our friends in the desert. And it feels like with the legalization of sports gambling, our friends in the desert may be having a larger influence on college sports right now. And our friends in the desert don't tend to screw around with stuff. There was a tweet, and I don't want to get into the reading tweets from every 1 hour, but this one was interesting, and it's from a Fox Sports Radio National CFB recap show host, Aaron Torres. He said, little note, was told by an airtight source tonight, at least one major sportsbook has been advised to take Michigan Lions off the board for the time being. For those who still don't get it, this isn't a, quote, NCAA rules are dumb, unquote, issue. It's a, quote, integrity of the entire sport, unquote, issue. So that's one of those things. And I shared that on Tuesday night. And I'll say here what I said on Twitter, which is right now, this is just a keep an eye on this kind of thing. But if you do see Michigan Lions getting pulled off of the board places, that's going to be an indication that, the people who make a lot of money by people, via people betting on Michigan games are pulling those off. And they are telling you that something real significant is impacting this in a way that is not, in the pure standards of sportsmanship and in the, the pure spirit of competition. That's just something to keep an eye on. I don't want to oversell this. There's been a lot of stuff floating around. That one felt like it was from someone who was maybe credible enough that it merited sharing, just as a keep an eye on this thing. There are coaches who are ticked about this, Tony. I mean, there's been plenty of them reporting, citing, Big Ten coaches who are really ticked about this and want to see something done. I wonder if our friends in the desert are really ticked about this too, because, if Michigan is consistently outperforming expectations for reasons that can't be quantified, that may cost sportsbooks money. If, people are betting, Michigan is a fairly public team, so people are going to throw a couple bucks on Michigan if Michigan's covering every week. Well, those are probably bets that casinos are losing money on to a certain degree. So, and you have to believe that the product in front of you is fair and being contested, within the rules of the game. There's not a Tim Donahue situation, that there's not a Dennis Lundy situation, and that this is being contested, in the way that you expect the game to be contested. So once you lose that becomes a pretty big issue in realms beyond just Big Ten coaches being mad.
Yeah, there's more than just a small group of people angry about this, and it doesn't take much more than a small group of angry people if that group of people is influential. And there are a number of influential people angered throughout many different spheres, whether it is the gambling people, the Big Ten coaches, national coaches, if you will. Some, Kirby Smart didn't seem to be bothered by any of it, because I think the rough quote was, yeah, I don't remember much of that game, basically, where I thought that Michigan had our number or knew anything that we were doing, that sort of thing. And if you remember the game, I don't know, what was it, like 30-11, something like that. Michigan was never in that one. And if they had plays, maybe it would have been 30-14, something like that. But the one last thing that I want to maybe just touch on, the race to pin this on Ryan Day as some sort of a whistleblower, and to the want to bury the whistleblower rather than find out the truth, or to say, hey, is there any truth to this, by some, is funny. But then also John U. Bacon, a noted Michigan expert author, best-selling author, like a not necessarily Michigan's version of Jack Park, but in that same kind of realm, but also will report and is a presence on Twitter, putting a name to the whistleblower being Jim Stapleton, who is a board of trustees for Michigan and also on the NCAA Committee on Infractions now.
Yes, he's on the NCAA Committee on Infractions. He served a 10-year term as alumni student athlete representative on Michigan's board in control of intercollegiate athletics. He served a 10-year term as a gubernatorially appointed regent at Eastern Michigan University. assisted in the formation of a group that purchased the Minnesota Vikings franchise in 2006, former senior vice president of business affairs to the Detroit Tigers, and he's also an attorney by trade.
So it's not Ryan Day.
Well, it seems like there's a new, there's a new scapegoat out there, and I mean, don't let the scapegoat, don't let this, today's version of Emmanuel Goldstein distract you from the fact that this is about whether rules were broken or not. Like Michigan boards are in their 2 minutes hate every day at this point over something new, and it feels like the substance of things is not really getting addressed, and it's just sort of like, go get that guy. And that's, okay. But I said this, I think, on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning episode we recorded at the Woody yesterday. When the response to stuff is just universally stupid and wrong, it's generally an indication that the reporting on a subject is probably fairly accurate. And there's not a legitimate way to rebut it. But it's Ryan Day is the one. He's a crybaby. His teams are soft. Hey, it's this guy. He's always hated Jim Harbaugh. And I don't know. I don't know the guy at all. I had not heard the guy's name until John Bacon said it on 97.1 on Wednesday morning. Maybe he does have it out for Jim Harbaugh. I have no idea. Unless this guy has made this whole thing up of whole cloth, including, Venmo transactions from Connor Stalions. And, I don't think that this guy is actually the issue. This, he may be taking he may be involved in the decision, but this is not something that this guy is going to do by himself. And this is not something that this guy, forced Michigan to do if, the stuff they're accused of. It feels like a little bit of a distraction.
And the last thing for me is the latching on to the Venmo stuff, and Michigan side of fans and even maybe a couple of media members throwing out the name of an Ohio State QC person as a guy and using some Venmo receipt from the Notre Dame game that one of the people were attending. Like, you can't advance scout a game, and they were attending the Ohio State Notre Dame game, which is vastly different than attending a game well in advance to scout something. You can't advance scout as the game is going on from a seat that is not equipped to do any of that. And throughout all of this reporting, Connor Stalions, like, none of the games that they were scouting were Michigan games. They're always future Michigan opponents. You can't. The better place to scout this would be from the press box, and it's not even scouting. It's like the better place to steal the signals would be from the press box. And this is not advanced scouting. This is going to a game. This is attending a game that you want to see because your guys are playing in it. And it's a venue that it's college football history. This isn't Tom, you would have to be, to advance scout in real time, you would have to be able to move so much faster. It would have to be like, you are one of these superheroes that can stop time. And it's just a ridiculous notion that you're thinking that this is equivocal to anything that has been done allegedly from the Connor Stalions side.
Right. That's a real, just very obvious distraction to what's actually going on here. Because the date on this was two Ohio State staffers Venmoing money. We had the public Venmo conversation yesterday. We don't need to repeat that. But Venmoing money on September 21st, 2023 at 9:06 p.m. So that would be the Thursday evening before the Ohio State Notre Dame game. The emoji on the thing was a shamrock. It leads me to believe it might be Notre Dame related, Tony. The issue with Connor Stalions games is it was advanced scouting. This is attending a game that Ohio State's playing in. You're allowed to attend games you're playing in, because otherwise, every game would be a forfeit. Does that make sense? I feel like that makes sense. I feel like having the team, staff members, families, what have you there, is probably a relevant portion of playing the game. It's a relevant piece of playing the game. So, yeah, this is not at all the same thing, but yeah, there was a Michigan media member who was pushing that. And it's like, my brother in Christ, use your brain for 3 seconds and think it through. Look at the date that the Ohio State Notre Dame game was played and look at the date of this transaction. This is advanced scouting 2 weeks in advance. This is someone buying a ticket the week of the game so that he and or his family could go attend. I had the tweet from that staffer after the game that showed video from the stands, and it said, like, hey, look, this is where he was sitting. Someone told me that video he had taken from someone else, and so it was not necessarily his seat, so I took that down. But, regardless, this is someone who was buying a ticket to the game that Ohio State was playing in, which you're allowed to do. Connor Stalions being at the Michigan games, he's not stealing the opposing team signs in advance illegally during the game where they're playing that team. Someone else is out there doing that remotely at another school. That's the allegation. That's the issue. I keep seeing people saying, you're allowed to steal signs. Everyone steals signs. Yes, you're allowed to steal signs during the game where you're playing the team. You're not allowed to do it in advance. That's the issue. I genuinely don't know, Tony. Are people seriously not understanding the distinction here? Or is this just I've reached my conclusion on this, and so therefore, I have to just say this because, otherwise I might have to acknowledge, like, hey, there might be something going on here.
Yeah, it's the intellectual dishonesty or just not being truthful with yourself in terms of what this looks like, and again, what it looks like, not necessarily what it is yet, although it's getting worse and looking like it's getting worse and worse. And so I think a lot of people are Michigan fans are like, but it's all circumstantial. None of this is tying together to Michigan. But even then, if it does, then the response is going to be like, why is this even legal? The NCAA, and this is already happening, the NCAA tried to get rid of this rule a couple of years ago. They said it was more trouble than it's worth to monitor it, and they didn't see it as being all that beneficial. And so people on the Michigan side have latched onto that. Like, see, the NCAA doesn't even think it's a real thing, except it's still a rule. They did not get rid of that. And clearly, if you want to look at the circumstantial evidence, it sure helps, or else they wouldn't be doing it. You wouldn't be sending people out. You wouldn't be trying to get as much information as you can. So it certainly looks like it's it's helping. And so I think once everything is pinned back on Jim Harbaugh, then the reaction will be, why is this even a rule? Why is there anything wrong with this? And the rules today, society today, that whole thing, it's like, it shouldn't even be against rules because we're working harder, that sort of thing. We're being punished for our effort, enthusiasm unmatched, unknown to mankind. What's wrong with that? And they're just trying to keep us down, and they're out to get us, and all of the conspiratorial things that we see way too often today is just going to be handed down to the Michigan football fandom. And it's a difficult situation for Warde Manuel to be in if he wants to be like, this is completely unacceptable for what this program has purported itself to be for so long. And you've just seen that, become almost Lord of the Flies overnight in terms of what is okay and what isn't, what is just hamburgers and what is just stealing signs.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of rationalization, and you start getting into doing stuff that you wouldn't necessarily have thought you were willing to do. It just, again, I feel like I've said this 100,000 times, like, let's let this whole thing play out. Let's see what the NCAA comes up with evidence-wise. Someone messaged me this morning, DM'd me this morning, was asking, has the NCAA gotten the video yet from that, that they were supposed to be getting? I said, I have no idea. We will have to wait and find out. We'll see when they get the video, we'll see what is on that video, what they find on that video. We'll find it all eventually. At this point, we are just sort of collecting information, and, you're starting to have dots you can connect a little bit, and it's making a little bit more sense, and you're getting some consistent themes and data supporting certain conclusions. Can I let it continue to play out? I do, Tony, before I let you go, a little more from that SI story from Richard Johnson I mentioned earlier. I'm just going to read his tweet promoting it. Part of it was that Connor Stalions was apparently, quote, also working on a 600-page manifesto to run the program in the future using data on about 500 Navy players to inform a recruiting theory. And then Matt Brown, the Extra Points newsletter, an Ohio State grad with the quote to the day. Says, "Weird, a Michigan man writing a huge manifesto has never gone poorly before." Tony, I think we're done.
It's so annoying that I did not know that that was coming because I was waiting to make that same joke. So I will edit this. 3, 2, 1. Tom, it's crazy. Another Michigan man with a giant manifesto? What could possibly go wrong? And scene.
Do we have our name? Is he the Unifilmer? Something like that? Are we
Oh my.
the Unisigner Manifesto?
The Uniconner?
The Uniconner's not bad. How is his last name Stallions, and that's not going to be the part of his name we use for this? I don't know. Unistallions? Yeah, I don't know. Look, Tony, good news. I think we're probably going to end up doing another show on this at some point relatively soon, and we can continue to workshop these tremendous, tremendous ideas.
So much workshopping that will go on. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please check us out at BuckeyeHuddle.com, where all kinds of stuff is happening right now. If you're not yet a member, now is a fantastic time to join. Also, continue to find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle and any podcast platform that you would deign to use. We are there as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys later.